2018 movie reviews. Bad Times at the El Royale, Halloween. Bad Times at the El Royale. A group of strangers gather at a sleazy motel in the middle of a thunderstorm, but none of them are exactly who they seem to be. Jeff Bridges leads the cast in this 60s set ensemble thriller that plays like a classier, less irritating version of The Hateful Eight. This started slow and is pretty long, but once it got going I found it pretty engrossing, with strong performances all round. The girl who played Dakota Johnson's sister wasn't half nice either. Overall I give Bad Times at the El Royale a strong B+. Halloween. Michael Myers escapes from the loony bin 40 years after massacring a bunch of people, even though he also massacred people 10 years later, 11 years later, 18 years later and 20 years later. I'm afraid I wasn't impressed. It wasn't terrible, but it was nowhere near as good as the hype, and while it's better than some of the sequels I found it markedly inferior to others, 2, 4 and H2O, all of which it retcons. The retconning of the Laurie-Michael sibling relationship also strikes me as anal fanboyism rather than particularly necessary, and actually rather undermines them as nemesis in my opinion. I didn't think Curtis was as good in this as she was in H2O, which also had a rather more believable version of Laurie. The last act was also surprisingly weak, with the eventual confrontation between Laurie and Michael nowhere near as epic or satisfying as in H2O in my not particularly humble opinion. I know that will result in butthurt for some, massive butthurt, but there you go. Like Terminator Genesis, this is basically cinematic fanfiction. Unlike Genesis, I was kind of bummed out by this. In fact, while I walked out vaguely disappointed, by the time I got home disappointment was already transforming into irritation. I give the new Halloween a drearily uninspired D.